April 2nd, 2026. We are in the 5th year and on day 38 since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. A warm welcome to the Situation Report. In today's report, we will look at a major attack on airfields. We will also look again at attacks on refineries, as well as Russia's statement that they have completely captured the Luhansk region, and much more. Let's start this time at the very bottom of the map. There was a large-scale Ukrainian attack on Kirovsk Airfield in Crimea. According to current information, several high-value targets were hit simultaneously, with 4 Orion reconnaissance drones reportedly destroyed, as well as a site for heavy drones that are launched from Crimea towards Ukraine. Additionally, the loss of a transport or special aircraft of the Antonov 72P type has been reported, as well as the destruction of a radar system. Apparently, FP-2 drones with comparatively large warheads in the range of 60 to 100 kilograms were used, which indicates targeted attacks against fixed, valuable infrastructure and not just the small targets for which the regular FP-2 is used. That means, of course, there was a strategy behind this attack, especially when it comes to high-value targets, like a radar or a larger aircraft. The possible loss of the Antonov 72P is particularly noteworthy because this platform is used, among other things, to combat maritime targets, especially in the context of Ukrainian sea drones, which have repeatedly challenged the coast of Crimea. This loss directly affects the ability to detect and combat such threats at an early stage. If you look at the target selection, it is also noticeable that several layers were targeted at the same time. For example, the Orion reconnaissance drones were attacked, as well as command and base structures, such as the drone site itself, the sensors like the radar, and a rather specialized aircraft. So this points to an attack that is not just aimed at individual losses, but at the functionality of the entire system, especially for drone defense. Against this background, the maritime operation of Ukrainian sea drones is becoming increasingly interesting, because if the corresponding capabilities to defend against the drones are weakened, at least a window of time opens up in which such systems can be used more effectively, whether against ships or against infrastructure along the coast, such as docking facilities. A drone shot from the air shows the result of a Russian attack with motorcycles on Ukrainian defensive positions, or actually just on the forward positions. Several vehicles and soldiers are lying directly in front of a combination of barbed wire barriers and so-called dragon's teeth, or as I call them, dragon's milk teeth. What's striking here is the sequence of events. The attacking forces apparently first created or used a gap in the barrier to break through quickly. This is exactly the point the Ukrainian defense targets, because the concept of standing directly behind the barrier or digging trenches there, making themselves vulnerable again, doesn't exist like that on the Ukrainian side, because they actually wait until the movement becomes more channeled. At the moment when the motorcyclists tried to push through the gap that had been created, they were specifically targeted, most likely by drones. That also explains why the losses are so concentrated at exactly this bottleneck. It shows quite clearly the real purpose of such barriers. They are less intended to completely stop attacks over long distances and wide corridors, but rather to direct and channel them. Some destroyed parts of the defense are deliberately left open so that attackers are forced to use certain passages, and that's exactly where they become vulnerable. This effect is especially strong with fast, lightly armored units like motorcycles. They only have speed as long as they can maneuver freely. When movement is limited to a narrow corridor, it becomes a predictable target. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported on the 1st of April the complete capture of Luhansk Oblast. The Ukrainian side, however, rejects this claim and calls it another propaganda success story without any real basis. They also refer to it as an April Fool's joke. According to Ukrainian units, especially the 3rd Assault Brigade, their own forces are still present in the western outskirts of the region. Specifically, this concerns the small front sections near the border with Donetsk Oblast, which I have marked for you here on the deep state map. Ukrainian troops reportedly remain in position there. The situation in that section has barely changed. Russia does control the vast majority of the region, about 99.9% of the total area, but has not yet been able to completely push out the last remaining Ukrainian positions. So yes, they do control almost the entire region, but they report having taken it completely, which is not actually true. It's also noticeable that similar reports of success have appeared several times in the past. So this is not the first statement of this kind, but rather a repetition of a familiar pattern. The significance of Luhansk remains just as high. The region is not only part of the Donbas, but also strategically closely connected to Russia. Full control would have a symbolic and, above all, political value, especially because it has been one of the central objectives since the beginning of the war. And Russia has not been able to achieve a single one of them. And that's after 1,499 days of war. And yes, such a symbolic victory or a symbolic or political announcement is really important for the Russian side right now, because their new offensive has already been going on for 2 weeks without any significant success. During previous offensives, I was able to report changes on the front lines on the map every day, but with this one, almost nothing is happening, and it's been going on for 2 weeks now. And on the Russian side, things don't start off like an avalanche, growing from small attacks to bigger skirmishes and then to real battles. No, it's exactly the opposite on the Russian side. There, it's usually the case that they attack with everything they've got right from the start, and then over time it gradually decreases. But here we hardly see anything at all, except that the daily casualty numbers are a bit higher than usual. Currently, however, there are many indications that the front remains in a fairly static state, with limited skirmishes but no decisive shifts. In Ufa, the capital of the Russian Republic of Bashkortostan, the Vashnev Refinery has apparently become the target of a Ukrainian drone attack. Reports mention a hit inside the facility, but details on the damage are still unavailable. The refinery is one of the largest processing sites in Russia and is therefore part of a widely connected network of extraction, processing, and transportation infrastructure. Accordingly, a hit, depending on the affected area, can have effects beyond the immediate location. It is also noteworthy that the target is once again deep inside Russia. Ufa is located far in the Russian hinterland, which means this target is far from the front line. So whether central processing units are affected or not is still unclear at this point. We should probably wait a few more hours. But what will be crucial is whether production has to be restricted or whether operations can be resumed after a short time. According to Pavlo Palisa, Russia continues to pursue the goal of gaining full control over the Donbas. At the same time, pressure is currently being exerted by attacking critical infrastructure in Ukraine. The combination of military action at the front and strikes against energy and processing or supply infrastructure points to an approach that is not only aimed at territorial gains, but of course also at putting pressure on Ukrainian society and state structures, just as we have actually seen in recent years. According to Palisa, the Ukrainian side is currently focused on several levels at once. This includes strengthening their own defense capabilities, close coordination with international partners, and also taking preventive measures and addressing threats at an early stage. These statements thus provide a small insight into the current strategic perception in Kiev. Russian forces have attacked Kharkiv a total of 11 times, with a focus on the Kievsky district of the city. What is particularly striking is the first-time use of jet-powered drones against a city like Kharkiv. These systems are significantly different from other Shahed drones, are faster, harder to detect, and greatly reduce the reaction times of air defenses. That seems to have played a rather interesting role now because while some of the incoming drones could be intercepted, others probably got through. The choice of such a densely populated city district once again shows that these attacks do not only target military objectives, but are deliberately intended to create pressure in urban areas. By the way, we identify this as a Geran 3 drone, the faster successor to the Geran 2, itself a licensed copy of the Shahed 136. There are no territorial gains to report today. On the Russian side as well, which is in the middle of an offensive, there is almost nothing to report, actually nothing at all. The Ukrainian local offensive in the area of Hujajpol has also more or less fallen silent. And with that, I want to thank all subscribers, channel members, and the Algo crew. Thanks to Colonel Lothar Dreneke Latete, and I'm Arjen Meyerhofer. Please subscribe, like, and comment. And until the next situation report.